Oh my God. Every group chat I'm in.
Okay, so today we are going to think about and actually discuss and role play, actually, how far should our government be able to go to keep you and I safe? Actually, it would be keep you and me safe. Check it, I'm right. How far should our government be able to go to keep us safe?
They got Dakota typing.
Can you put the phone away like I asked already?
Sorry.
That's not away. Fix it. That's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at previous examples where the government may have gone a bit too far, maybe not, and you probably recognize what's going on here. So how the United States handled the Japanese during World War II. So just a little bit of background here. There's two terms that you should become familiar with, and that is Nisai and Isai. The Japanese originally came to the United States looking for work. The awful economic situation that existed in Japan. I'm going to pause. Will you put the phones away like I've asked? Yeah. It's hilarious until it isn't. Thank you. Now keep them away. Okay. So anyway, they came here, and the original Japanese that crossed the Pacific Ocean were called Isai. Their kids born here, ethnically Japanese, but nationality-wise American, were called Nisai. Okay? Isai, first generation, Nisai, second generation, and on. Kind of an easy way to remember it is Isai with an I looks like a 1. Nisai looks like a sideways 2. There you go. Okay. The Nisai consider themselves to be American. Isai consider themselves to be, immigrants in a foreign land, but their kids consider themselves American. They automatically liked football and baseball, and they spoke English, and they celebrated American holidays, although they still had a Japanese ancestry. And then Pearl Harbor happens, which is bad news for the Nisai. Right? So the original Isai 1880s. By 1941, there really aren't any Isai unless you're really old. It's just Japanese Americans born here, but of Japanese ancestry. Okay? So the question is, what is the United States going to do about this? Does the United States need to do anything about this?
You're welcome.
How many German Americans were detained on the East Coast when the U.S. went to war against Germany?
0.
That's right, 0. How many Japanese Americans were detained on the West Coast when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor?
A lot.
Oh, okay. So you're looking at this map. This is the West Coast. These two shaded areas represent if you were of Japanese ancestry and you lived in the shaded area, you had a certain amount of time, limited amount of time, a couple days to pack your bags, and they would move you to various parts, mostly in the western United States, but away from the coast, because they didn't know. They didn't know if you were a spy. They did not know. Now, again, if you compare that to, well, did they do the same thing to German Americans on the East Coast? And the answer is, of course, no, they didn't. Blatant racism here, though. Can you tell who's a German American on the East Coast versus could you tell who's an Asian American? You're a racist.
Racist.
Wow, racist.
This is the executive order. I want you to recognize that it was an executive order that did this. This was not a Supreme Court decision. This was not an act of Congress. This was an act by the president during a time of crisis. I mean, we're at war, and at war, the president sort of takes command. This is the name of the general who actually was in command of defense of the West Coast. And that's how many people were forced to move, 120,000?
That's not that many.
That's a significant number compared to numbers smaller than it, but it's smaller than compared to numbers larger than it.
Is it?
So it's hard to say this is a large number. Well, maybe it's a large number. Depends on how many Japanese Americans lived there. Is this all of them? I'll tell you it's a significant portion. Okay. 60% of the people moved were American citizens. Are their constitutional rights being violated?
No.
Yeah.
No.
could argue yes, because what did they do? They didn't actually do anything to deserve what they were doing. But then you could argue, well, no, because during a time of conflict, your rights can be violated in the name of keeping the country safe. So
Since when has the government violated people's rights based on their race and ancestry? It's never happened.
This is the story about those who refused to go, though. Those who were ordered, get on that train, and they said, I'm not doing it. And specifically, this is about one guy. They actually made a movie about it, this one guy. So there he is. His name is Korematsu. There's him in 1940-ish, and there's him standing next to President Clinton after receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So something must have happened between him being sent to an internment camp and him being honored with one of the highest honors you can have in our country, right? How do you go from being a potential traitor to a hero? What happened? Okay.
Kill a lot of people.
So here's his little backstory. He's a Nisei. He refused to go to camp. In fact, he had eye surgery. Here's a piece of physical thing. You can sort of tell who's Asian because the eyes are slightly different, right? He had eye surgery to make his eyes wider so he looked not so Asian. He had an Italian girlfriend. He did not want to be separated from his Italian girlfriend. So he says, screw it, I'm not going. And of course, then he's arrested, right? He's not cooperating. So he disguised himself. After a hearing, he's convicted. He's sent to the camp anyway. But he appeals. It makes it all the way to Supreme Court, 1944. So the United States was attacked in 1941, December 7th, 1941. The Japanese Empire attacked us at Pearl Harbor, a day that will live in infamy. He's sent to a camp a couple of years, and then the Supreme Court finally rules on the constitutionality of those camps. Are they constitutional? Okay. I would like to know, what do you think the government's argument was?
I know.
That's right. He's suing the federal government. The government says what? What do you think the government said? It's war. Very good. Any other argument? Right? It's during a war. During a war, individual rights have to be secondary in importance to the good of the nation. Anything else?
There's nothing explicitly prohibiting it in the Constitution or its laws.
Yeah, right. Within the Constitution itself are basically permission slips to ignore the Constitution. It says right in there. So, by the way, interesting question here. If you obey that part of the Constitution, are you ignoring the Constitution?
Yeah.
Plus, listen, if you make more Swiss cheese, you've made more holes. And the more holes you make, the less cheese you have. Therefore, the more cheese you have, the less cheese you have.
No, that's a logical fallacy.
No, it's true. It's a fact. Look it up. Any other argument? Basically, you've nailed it, right? During a war, we need to exert extraordinary control. Sorry, we violated individual rights. The nation's more important. Okay? Well, his case was taken on by an organization called the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. They still exist. If you've ever been wronged and you believe it's based on gender or race, call the ACLU. They'll represent you for free. What do you think they said? Right? They're on his side. They're arguing for the Supreme Court. What do you think they said?
The
But
government's being racist.
sorry?
The government's being racist.
Very good, right? Were you doing this to the Germans? Nope. You're doing it to the Japanese. So it can't be based on security because the Germans are just as dangerous as the Japanese. So this is a racist-based policy. Very good. Anything else? What did he do? What was this guy guilty of?
Ignoring federal laws.
You just said it. His crime was being Japanese. That was his crime. The reason he was being punished was because he's Japanese, which last time I checked is not a crime. Our government bases punishment on what you did, not what you might do. Right? Think of this school. Are there people in this school that you think might just be kind of dangerous?
Yeah.
Well, why aren't they arrested?
They should be.
They haven't done anything.
Guilty
You
until
can't be
proven
arrested
innocent.
on potential. You cannot be arrested
That's
on
not a-
potential.
Okay, well,
There are a few exceptions to that. For example, a person convicted of sexually inappropriate behavior towards kids serves a sentence, let's say 10 years. And then he's let go. He's forever labeled a sex offender, right? He's already paid his dues to society. Doesn't matter. For the rest of your life, you are a sex offender. Now, does that violate his right to move on? It sure does. Good. Okay. How did the Supreme Court rule? Does anyone happen to know?
They ruled in favor of the internment camps.
So Will just said they ruled in favor of the internment camps, to which I can unequivocally say, rare moment, Will is wrong.
No.
I know. Mark the date and hour. 2:30.
2:31.
Why the applause?
Because
You made Kaylee very happy.
He was like, I've known him.
But before we say, well, that means this guy won, that's not exactly true either.
Thanks, Will.
So I can't say that Will was
I got
100% wrong.
snaps.
But because of the way he
People I don't
phrased
talk to.
his answer, I can say he's wrong.
13.
I sent it to over 100.
No.
I went down on your friends list and I got all the way down to the S.
Court sided with the government, sort of. Here's what the Supreme Court said. Number one, the removal of the Japanese was fine. So getting them off the West Coast was okay. It was the internment part that wasn't. So you can remove them, victory for government, but you can't put them in a prison camp, victory for this guy. Okay? As a matter of fact, the United States government, after World War II, in a move of sorry Japanese Americans that we put into these camps, wrote a check to every person that could prove you were in the camps. And I believe it was in the ballpark of $80,000. If you were a direct descendant of one of the people, you also got a check for a significantly less amount of money. But basically, it was a way of saying, we effed up. Sorry about that here. Actually, this has a long history in America where people wrongfully convicted. The state of Wisconsin, I mean, how many of you are aware of that Making a Murderer series, Making a Murder? It's a couple years old now, but his name was Steve Avery, wrongfully convicted of murder in Wisconsin. Served something like 10-ish years in prison, and then DNA evidence proved he could not have done it. So the state of Wisconsin immediately let him go, paid him money, and then soon afterwards, he was accused of killing someone else. He's right now rotting in jail right now. I don't know. We don't know. Okay, anyway. Okay. I am now going to require you to sit at 4 spots. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So you should be at a table of 5 people. Okay? I don't care where you sit. So that one needs 1 more. This one needs 2 more. You need to be in a group of 5. And there's 1 group of 6. Go.
No, 2 of you come over here.
So if 2 of you join this group, there's a group of 5.
Or I
And
go over there.
the other one group join that group, and then that group needs to divide. Come on now.
Here.
This is hard.
Come here, Ethan.
We got the tray and what's this
Kiddo.
Groups of 5,
now we have 5.
1 group of 6.
I'm sorry.
So you 2 could join that group right there.
Stuck with him.
Perfect. Okay. 1, 2. That's 2. No, those 2 are going to join this group. One of you can join this group, 1 that or 2. Okay. Group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. Okay.
What back? What's on that video you sent to everyone?
It was me zooming in on your dimple.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of saw you put on my story and delete it before I watched it.
You deleted it off your story.
Yeah. That's what over 100 people got.
Why are you on your phone?
Because you were being boring.
What phone?
Entertaining us.
Okay.
We have the attention spans of 4-year-olds, and you need to entertain us at all times. Wait, what?
Proposal number 3. Agree all this. Agree.
Okay. Will you please take a minute and read your piece of paper? Each of you has your own. You're free to mark it up all you want. Part of it is the explanation of the proposal itself, and then the second part is the possible impact of it, what it would do. Part 1 is what it is. Part 2 is the impact of that proposal. Go ahead and read it.
Wait, so is this strengthening or weakening? This is without.
Does anyone need more time? Punishment.
What do you think, Kayla?
Eating your red gum.
I don't know.
Saying,
Yeah.
just saying the Department of Justice can listen in on lawyer-client meetings if they have probable cause of legality.
Eyes closed. In your palate. Do you promise your eyes are closed?
But it couldn't happen until a judge says, yeah.
Trust me, I will just place it in your mouth. Open. Okay. Taste it. Okay. Delicious. Nutritious. Okay. All right. Number 2. Delicious.
Who's that one?
Okay. Ready? No, you're not ready.
Dylan Cameron? You got down there, Will?
Number 3.
Well, I got lower. I was going alphabetically, so.
Well, we'll see who cares to respond.
I sent it to Kendra.
Well, she's the C's, so.
Which one was the best?
K's.
I know the color order.
Do we do it by first name on Snapchat?
Yeah.
not making it fun for him. You cheated. Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Within your group, you need to subdivide. Not necessarily based on your opinion, although that would be the most convenient way to divide. Do you agree with this proposal?
No.
Either you do or you don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with no.
Yes side, form a subgroup, sit together. No side, form a subgroup, sit together. If you're for it, why are you for it? If you're against it, why are you against it? If you're all for one side or the other, then some of you are going to have to argue against the side of your opinion. Because you have to convince them.
Why?
Because of the nature of this.
Nobody believes it. Then why?
Doesn't matter. It's just sometimes defense attorneys have
but all
Okay, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes.
I'm not a defense.
Come up with arguments for why it is either a good idea or a bad idea, and then we will actually propose it to the whole group. Okay, 5 minutes.
So it sounds like at heart we all disagree.
I agree.
You want to argue agree?
Yeah.